our channel, and you can check out all the other good stuff that we've been uploading onto our YouTube platform. And yeah, hope you guys are gonna enjoy these spaces. And shout out to our sponsor of today, Null's Protocol. They're a unique lending app that has their DeFi lease solution. I put them up on the Nest. They'll be launching mainnet by the end of Q2, so look forward to that. I believe we're going to be hosting them sometime next week, and also our YouTube collaboration that we did with them earlier this week is going to be debuting by the end of next weekend. So look forward to all that good stuff, and want to welcome you guys on here. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your morning, afternoon, or evening to come join us here on Twitter and for these discussions and all that stuff. So appreciate you guys. Not sure if you guys can hear me clearly, but how am I coming in, man? Is the quality good?
Loud and clear.
All right, sorry about the noise, guys. There's nothing I can do about it in the background. But I guess we can start off. How's everyone doing, man? Premise, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing great. I saw the title and I was like, oh yeah, this is something I'm passionate about, privacy solutions. So I'm feeling excited about hearing more, learning about these projects, and what's the best way I can protect my privacy, especially here on blockchain. I think it's something really important. So yeah, and you know how we're doing in the meme season. And it makes me wonder, where's that private meme privacy token, right? Where's that big privacy meme, right? Like that'd be interesting too, maybe.
I think Mr. Waltzel can tell us a little bit about that. He was dropping some alpha, and it was really similar to what you were saying, bro. Something about Turbo. Mr. Waltzel, if you want to deep dive us into some privacy memes, go on ahead, brother. Good to have you back on the show.
Sure. Well, I guess this one was maybe uncorrelated. This is more so like a fun fact that there's a group of secret network whales that were in on Turbo, like very much so early on, like they're easily in the 1000x at this point. But one of the things that we've been kind of laughing about and observing is really two things. One of them is fees. Like it's crazy. Like if you move something like Turbo trading onto something like Cosmos or an Ethereum layer 2, fees would be like way less intense and a lot more accessible for folks. And then the second thing everyone is kind of talking about, and this is where privacy comes in, is the sandwich attacks and the MEV. The amount of money that's been just handed over to miner extractable value is absurd. It's got to be north of $1 million easily when you have this many retail investors up against programmatic actors on an illiquid pool. And so the beauty of privacy with something like an encrypted mem pool, or at least encrypted compute transactions on Secret Network, is you could have an actual fair trading experience. No front running folks like watching and looking at the mempool and doing sandwich attacks. When you have an encrypted mempool, it's completely safe and fair from that. So I think in the future, once we have these encrypted mempools being more common, you'll see meme tokens launching in a more fair trading environment that actually favors the users as opposed to the programmatic actors.
Mr. Wotzel, man, can you tell us what a mempool is for those that are not as technically proficient as you are, and exactly what is MEV and all that good stuff?
Sure. So essentially, whenever you submit a transaction to a blockchain, it has to get picked up by someone that's actually going to add it to like the most recent block, right? And so on something like Ethereum, hundreds of people are, submitting their transactions. And so they're sitting out there for everyone to look at, waiting to be kind of accepted into the ledger. And in this totally transparent environment, really smart programmatic actors can be like, oh, Wabi's about to buy Turbo. He's coming in at this price point. What if I, put a purchase on Turbo in front of Wabi, and then immediately have I know that Wabi is going to be buying essentially like at spot price. So I can guarantee that he's going to sell into me, and then I can essentially resell on the other end and earn money on the spread. Like I essentially perform a sandwich attack. And this is because all the transactions are totally publicly visible. All the metadata is just floating out there. and these programmatic actors essentially extract guaranteed profit from small retail users. And this is why, like an encrypted mempool, when that metadata isn't publicly visible, it means that when you go and place that buy order, someone's not going to be able to see that, and they're not going to be able to extract, money from you in the process of you trying to ape into something. So that's kind of an example of what a mempool is, and why privacy matters is you actually get to preserve value and have a fair trading experience.
So is this the piece of alpha that Jared from Subway has been using, man? Because that guy, as fun as I had with Pepe, and full disclosure here, I was also in Pepe Printer, which printed a fuckload of Pepe, and with some of that stuff, I got into CTGPT, which rugged. And of course, thanks to Jared from Subway, it was my first official rug ever. I'm very proud of that. And so, is this what he used? Is this what he used, brother? Jared from Subway. He used his $5 footlong on me.
I can't speak to that precise situation. And at the end of the day, due diligence on smart contracts. We need fair trading environments, but malicious devs is a whole separate category of security, unfortunately.
Understandable. So I guess we can, go around the panel and have some of our new speakers give an introduction on who they are. I see we have Railgun for the individual behind Railgun. What's going on, brother? Good to have you here, man. Feel free to introduce yourself and how your product is contributing to overall digital asset privacy, man. Good to have you on once more. Thank you for taking the time out of your morning or afternoon or evening to come talk shop with us, man. Great having you up on our roundtable spaces.
Yeah, how's it going, guys? I'm Alan. I'm one of the co-founders of the Railgun Privacy Project. We've deployed some zero-knowledge-based smart contracts across a myriad of EVMs now, currently on Ethereum, Arbitrum, BSC, and Polygon. Allows you to take in, transact, with wallet-side privacy in a public ledger space.
Appreciate you being here, brother. And now we'll go on over.
Me,
Now we'll go on over to Mr. Mohawk. Mr. Mohawk, man, what's going on, brother? Good to have you. Good to have you on the spaces.
Yeah, what's going on, guys? Appreciate you calling me up, Bobby. I unfortunately don't have the pleasure of talking to you guys about anything privacy, but we do a little bit of transparent marketing over at Caliber Capital. Kind of, I guess, the opposite of what privacy is. But we feel that more transparency in the space is good when it comes to knowing about what to invest in. But I'm a big proponent of once people have that information about solid teams, solid projects, solid protocols, however you want to categorize it. It is very important for asset protection to, be your assets to sift through and not someone else's. So I'm really looking forward to learning a little bit more about what everyone has going on today, and hopefully learning something new that I can take with me on my journey.
Good stuff, man. Great having you. And now, Mr. Logan, I invited you up. You're here, man. Feel free to introduce yourself. And like I said, man, I think I remember you from back in the Terra Luna days, brother. Like early last year, late 2021, man.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm actually about to put my almost 4-year-old son to bed, basically. So I'm just kind of listening in, but definitely excited about the future of Shade and everything that's going on. I mean, privacy is definitely needed, and there's a lot of people looking at Shade from the outside, and there's quite a few whales that are interested, and I've talked with Carter about this quite a few times. So I don't think it's a question of if there's going to be a lot of upside with Shade specifically, but it's just kind of question when.
Awesome, man. And I think we'll start the conversation over with Zcash. I know Zcash, you've been a privacy advocate almost since day one, man. So I want to know, what are some of the reasons that you enjoy privacy within DeFi, and what are some cool developments that you've noticed, brother? Because for the most part, pretty much all of DeFi is not really DeFi. It's mainly centralized with a single point of failure, right? With Aave, I mean, we pretty much already know with Aave that it's mostly LP money. That's not retail money. That's venture capital money, man. So, wanted to know your thoughts on privacy. I know it's kind of divided, right? We have the old guard. You have your Moneros, your Zcashes, your Dashes, and all that stuff, and then we have this next generation of privacy, right? And for some of you guys that don't know, I believe Enigma what did Enigma rebrand as, Carter? What did they rebrand
Secret
as?
Network.
Yeah,
Secret
yeah,
Network.
yeah. I figured it was literally at the tip of my tongue. But yeah, I think they're from like 2018, late 2017. I remember them. But yeah, man, I want to know your thoughts on that, and anything that you want to share to the crowd, man. Good having you here.
Thank you. Yeah, just I've kind of been into securing our information in general since really a long time. I mean, it's kind of interesting how everything sort of comes full circle. Just for me and my personal story. I wrote papers back in college about Edward Snowden's, that whole situation, him revealing like all of the tracking that our government does on us. So like uh, that's sort of where I started getting interested in this sort of stuff. Obviously, Zcash didn't come along till way later. That's where like my interest in private cryptocurrencies started. But just going back to that real quick, the interest kind of started with that whole situation. It's just kind of funny how everything came full circle with Edward Snowden being one of the 6 participants that helped launch Zcash. So, I mean, a few things like obviously being totally transparent to the entire world with your pockets, with your wallet is probably not a great idea. Like Bitcoin and blockchain, what it's done, being able to create like basically an economy, a digital economy. That's essentially what Bitcoin kind of is. It has economic policy basically built into it where it can't necessarily be manipulated with supply and things like that and spending, but it still has an attack vector in that it's completely transparent. So even though it may be decentralized, the fact that you can taint a Bitcoin or an Ethereum by running it through Wasabi or through Ethereum through fucking what's it called, Tornado Cash, and you may have a coin that was touched by I don't know North Korea or this, that, or the other. Like, just imagine. Imagine going to the grocery store. You spend some Ethereum, Bitcoin, or whatever, and it's like you're being tracked. That's tainted coins, basically. And then you have to answer for certain things. How did you get these coins? That type of thing. This is just a made up scenario, but of course there could be all sorts of situations similar to that. So you still end up being like there's still an attack vector essentially. So it's not. Though it is technically decentralized, by having all of this information exposed, it's there's still like basically a big hole in our in everything that we're trying to push for. So obviously, my interest within crypto and privacy, it started with Zcash. Zcash kind of been um, the leading private, but also they've they brought zero knowledge proofs to life, which is like what a lot of these privacy protocols are now using. And Zcash users who buy and hold and mine and also run nodes, they support this ecosystem for the developers to be able to keep developing. Like, that's another thing too that's kind of interesting with Zcash is the development fund, which a lot of people knock, but Bitcoin has lacked severely. Even with all of the money that people have made off of Bitcoin, they've not contributed very much back to the devs to be able to support them to continue to build and innovate. Probably one of the reasons why Bitcoin is kind of irrelevant, has become irrelevant, other than just being a shiny rock in your wallet. So yeah, that's where a lot of that interest comes from, and I do think Zcash will continue to grow, and they've made developments that other people are now using in Halo 2, with trustless, basically trustless ZKPs. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see this grow further. It's not gotten much attention. I think a lot of it is because most privacy advocates are kind of doom and gloom. It's not fun. It's not exciting to maybe talk about some of those issues. And, that's why you see fucking meme coins like Pepe and whatever shit that's just fun, that just completely blasts off. But, I do think that the, coins with good fundamentals and big communities like Zcash, some of these others, will continue to grow, and probably and unfortunately it'll probably start getting used more so because of by force, that you kind of have to protect yourself, rather than like, oh, I want to buy this because I want to make money off it, type of thing. So yeah, that's all I've got.
Awesome, man. And Premise, I know that you're a digital nomad, man. So for yourself, man, how important is privacy for you since you're always on the move?
You might be thinking of someone else on this one.
I'm pretty digital nomadish myself, and I do prefer privacy. And the main thing about the privacy tokens is that concerns people like me, and perhaps they could ask the questions to it, is the privacy token, the kind of like the trust behind the privacy tokens, correct? Like, we know that there's people out there trying to offer bounties to break stuff like Monero and stuff, and future attacks. If anyone could speak to how does someone like me, who, while I desire privacy, I'm not as good with the technicals, identify what's a good privacy token or a privacy contract?
So I guess we'll move that on over to Alan.
Yeah.
from Railgun. Alan, man, so what are some privacy solutions that you feel could be implemented? Maybe it's mobile integration for someone that's a digital nomad, from going from place to place to place, and as ZK had mentioned, you could end up touching assets that were used for X and Y activities, and then you can get questioned and all of those things. What are some of the solutions that you've noticed being involved with a project that perhaps others aren't aware of for those solutions? Right, some people did find some of these more obscure DeFi solutions like Tornado Cash to be useful.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you got to be really aware of whenever you're looking at protocols in general, not just privacy solutions, in the DeFi space, is who controls what, and what are the vectors of control. So for example, custodial solutions, you got to be cognizant of not your keys, not your crypto, right? So taking and using things like custodial mixers and this sort of thing should be limited where possible. A lot of people, especially institutional players, a lot of what they're doing whenever they try to anonymize their wallets is they'll take and put them into a centralized exchange and then pull them out, right? And this would, arguably be one of the largest, custodial mixers. That is, places like Coinbase and Binance. And so, those are definitely really great options for people if you have your trust in them not to blow up spectacularly, like everybody from Mt. Gox in between straight to FTX. There's a lot of risk assumptions there, right? Again, who controls the coins? It's the centralized exchange. I think another thing that you have to be careful of is centralization when it comes to admin keys. So there's different protocols out there that have things like compliance committees, and this really isn't DeFi, and a lot of these don't really have any sort of information about like how these committees are put together or held accountable if they go rogue and try to adjudicate that someone's a bad actor when they're not actually. And so, in other words, like if someone can conspire to break your privacy, this isn't really a hardened privacy system. So with Railgun, there's no admin keys. There is no unilateral ability from a third party actor to dox you. It's all self hosted. You can take and choose to reveal your actions. Very similar to the folks over at Secret Network. Railgun has view keys baked into the contracts. We also have some cool tax compliance type stuff, so you can take and export a CSV, do your taxes on Coinly if you wanted to. You also have the ability to, in the future, we're working on some really cool recursive snark-based compliance systems where you can actually make, some really cool arbitrary statements about your balances. So if you're fearful that you could be, mistaken for a bad actor, this sounds like a common theme here in the panelists who are speaking today. Some of the things that we're working on are going to allow you to take and make compliance statements about yourself, your proof of, non-interaction with these, sanctioned entities or something like this if they happen to be in the same privacy solution as you. So you can take and prove your innocence, if you will, your non-interaction with, sanctioned nations or, some sort of like elite hacker group and, prove that you're just a degen trying to, get in on PayPay anonymously.
Yeah, privacy meme coins would be a trip, man. But yeah, I see Carter's back on, man. Brother, so feel free to catch us up to date with what you guys have been seeing in the privacy space, man. Would love to know any sort of new developments and why you believe that specific update is important.
I lagged out there for a second.
Yeah, connection issues on your end, brother.
Yep. Am I back now? Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay. I missed the question though. Sorry. And actually, we'll just have the Shade Protocol account answer. I think I might just tap out here.
Yeah, yeah. I was asking what you guys were up to over at Shade since we last spoke about 2 months ago.
Gotcha. I'll have the Shade Protocol account answer here, so we don't have to deal with my Wi-Fi issues. But Shade Protocol main account, can you speak here?
Yep, definitely. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, I'll dip out from here. Good luck. Sorry about the Wi-Fi issues, guys.
Not a problem, Carter. Yeah, so we've had some really interesting things going on these past 2 months. Really, this past April has been incredibly busy for us as we launched 3 of our most important applications. We launched Shade Swap, which is Shade's hybrid DEX, and it utilizes the first asymmetric concentrated liquidity curve being used in DeFi. And we're leveraging that specific curve to facilitate the swapping of liquid staking derivatives and their underlying layer 1 assets. And we've seen some incredible adoption and usage and just doing some initial competitive analysis and just general analysis of the trading experience against traditional concentrated liquidity, AMMs, and our asymmetric concentrated liquidity. It's really interesting looking at the increase in efficiency. But that was on April 12th that we launched Shade Swap, and then a week later we launched Silk, which is Shade Protocol's flagship product. It is a private by default stablecoin that is pegged to a basket of currencies and commodities. There are currently 6 currencies and commodities that are included in the basket. We've got USD, Canadian dollar, euro, and Japanese yen. And then the 2 commodities that are included are gold and Bitcoin. And then alongside Lend, Silk is an over-collateralized stablecoin, and Shade Lend is the primary issuer and stability mechanism for Silk. And so since then, it's actually pretty crazy to think about. Since then, we've attracted almost 8 million in TVL to our decks. We've got close to, I think it's 2.2 million Silk that has been borrowed. And so we've seen some incredible adoption in the first few weeks, and we've got some more collateral vaults opening soon, supporting new assets from other ecosystems. And yeah, we're incredibly excited for what's coming in the future.
Can I ask a question real quick? How are you guys? How are you connecting like these real world assets to this stablecoin protocol?
Yeah, so Silk is actually collateralized by a variety of different on-chain assets. The primary assets that are used to actually collateralize Silk are different liquid staking derivatives and stable coins at the moment. We're obviously going to continue opening up vaults so we can add greater exposure to uncorrelated assets to help with Silk stability. There's currently 5 vaults that are open that people can borrow Silk against. We've got ST Atom, which is Stride's liquid staking derivative for Atom, ST Osmo, Stake Secret, which is a liquid staking derivative that Shade Protocol built for Secret, the gas token and governance token for the Secret network, and then for USDC and USDT. Now, what it's actually pegged to, the peg is, a floating peg. So initially, there were certain weights and percentages and prices attached to each of these different currencies and commodities that were included in the peg. And then, over time, as the prices of these currencies and commodities change relative to the US dollar, there we see a shift in the price of the peg. Hopefully that answered your question. If you want me to go into any more specifics, I'm happy to.
ZK, is there anything you wanted to tell them?
No, not really. I mean, I'll be following along. I just noticed I follow you guys. I think Wabi and a few of the guys in a group chat told me about you guys, so I'll be watching.
Yeah, we're incredibly happy to finally get these 3 major products out. Obviously, we have other applications within our interconnected suite of private DApps. We've also released the first bonds within the Cosmos. Like I said earlier, we launched a staking derivative for Secret. We also launched a generalized IBC bridge that's incredibly helpful for the onboarding process and helping ensure that individuals' first experience coming into the Secret network, at least through Shade's bridge, is as positive as possible, and they're already there, ready to use our suite of interconnected applications.
What's your guys' consensus mechanism?
So we're a set of applications built on top of Secret Network.
Okay. So you're on Secret. Okay.
Yep. Yeah. Sorry for not specifying that earlier.
It's all good. I should have caught that with protocol, not network.
All right, man. Well, man, I guess the next topic would be what do you guys think of the current banking situation going on here in America? We can talk about that. I know usually with protocols, you guys don't really talk about these sort of things, man. But I feel that it's a topic that has to be brought up because I think it sets up a narrative for not only digital assets but also digital assets that include privacy. So we can start off with Alan, man. Alan, what are your thoughts on the current regional banking situations here in America, and do you think that's going to trickle up to some of the larger banks, potentially causing a not a crisis, but a credit event?
I mean, I certainly haven't been following it incredibly closely ever since I hung up my suit and gave up my TradFi. shackles back in the day. But we could definitely see there was a very interesting event in duration mismatch, right? We had a lot of people who thought that they could take and buy U.S. Treasuries and long-term bond types, and those be a safe bet. And that turns out not to be the case, especially whenever we have all of these really interesting events where they're taking. Didn't they just raise rates another 25 bips? Am I going crazy? They did,
Yeah,
right?
they did. They did.
Yeah,
They did.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yes, we got another 25 bips, on the way, which is really great to see. I think we're going to continue to see a little bit of pain on people who took and scaled into a lot of these really long-term, um, safe bets that a lot of banks are doing, because this kind of creates an issue for them, right? For people who don't know, like the core concept here, right, is banks will take and buy things that they consider to be, low risk cash equivalent types, and sometimes these are, really short term bonds. Sometimes these are, long term maturities where they'll hold them all the way clear through maturity. Some of them will be like MBS, mortgage-backed securities, right? Where they take and they pay coupons on a regular basis, and what they'll do is they'll take and they'll trade these out for cash in order to cover depositors, in the event that they need, uh, you know, you know, liquid cash. And whenever the rates of these kind of assets, go through the roof, the coupons and the yield that they're paying has gone up significantly. That's what that means for the previously purchased, yields are, um, well, they're super invaluable. Like they're not valuable at all, right? Rather, I should say. And they created a really big issue for themselves. And I think what's really interesting is we could see like Powell like taking like continually increase rates, uh, which if I were to put on a tinfoil hat, would almost say that it's intentional at this point that they're trying to put the hurt on the banking system to try to corral people into some sort of CBDC or something like that. But um, you know, we can maybe go down the tinfoil road hat if you
Go
guys
ahead,
want.
man. Go ahead, man. Go ahead. Go down the tinfoil hat. We enjoy these conversations. Go
So
ahead,
I think,
man. This is
Yeah.
yes, I
this
think
this
like
is
yeah,
yeah,
for
this
like
this
long
this this
term.
is this is when we break the mold from traditional Twitter Spaces, man. Because let me tell you something. I'm sure you guys have had so many Twitter Spaces where people ask you the same thing over and over and over again, man. So I think when we have a general, broader discussion, man, and it ties into the narrative, I think that brings in the audience together and creates an interesting dynamic between everyone here on the panel. So feel free to go on the tinfoil hat road. Go on ahead, brother. We
Yeah, so
encourage
I
you.
wonder, I can't help but think like that, the end goal, if the end goal is like CBDCs, they'll try to take and I think it'd be really interesting play to see, a central bank digital currency. If I'm thinking about it from like the other side's perspective, if you will, right? I could see there being like a CBDC rolled out where there is, eventually, they could come out and say, oh, you know what? Well, these banks, they've been investing this money really poorly, and these are really risky places to take and put your money, and so we're actually no longer going to offer FDIC insurance on your, your various bank deposits. And this would lure a lot of people to take and go into a central bank digital currency. And I think they could take and, probably, tie that in with some sort of like UBI or something like that, right? Where it's, if you participate in the, CBDC world, we're going to pay you some sort of like um, stipend. And I think that's kind of like the interesting play there. And I think the challenge with that, right, is that there isn't any privacy, and then it goes back to like centralized control, right, which is exactly why things like that's why the Bitcoin white paper was written, right? That's kind of why we build the things we do is to hopefully usurp these actors' abilities to do that kind of thing, right?
Go ahead, Mr. Mohawk. I agree with everything that you're saying, Alan. I think there's probably going to be some sort of weird incentive. You know what I mean? And it might trick people to make the wrong choices. I think the CBDC, even though it is going to happen, I think at the very early stages, I think there might be some clawback. But of course, incentivize money. I mean, incentivize, a little chunk of money with some burger and fries, and people will do the wildest things, man. They will truly do the wildest things. But go ahead, Mr. Mohawk.
Yeah, to piggyback a little bit on what Alan said earlier, just with where market sentiment is right now. During the day, I'm an insurance agent. I'm sure that saying that most, if not all of this room probably hates me now. Um, but we deal with casualty and property stuff. One of the main reasons that I even got into DeFi in the first place was to see how we could insure traditional business, or excuse me, Web3 businesses as traditional businesses. But with my background in insurance, seeing what rates are doing now, along with the rest of the market, I feel like insurance companies are kind of a good litmus test in a way, where you get a feeling of where the market is headed, and with what we're dealing with as far as rate hikes, what certain carriers are expecting of us, refusal of different businesses. I don't think that we're out of the woods yet. I know we saw a little bit of a bump from February, end of February, maybe beginning of March, until the last couple weeks. But like I said, I don't think that we're necessarily out of the woods yet. I know that that's not necessarily the best thing to hear, and not the most enthusiastic thing, but I try to be as real, or be as much of a realist as I can be, and just with what I'm seeing on my end, and my day to day, that's just kind of the general outlook that I have, at least for the next 12 to 18 months. Commercial real estate is, everyone's downsizing. All of these, speaking of CBDCs, all of these old banker mentality guys got to see productivity kind of stay the same, or if not better, when everyone was working from home through COVID, and now they're downsizing all of these office spaces. I think that's gonna be a decision that we're gonna see, kind of have a reckoning over the next 6 to 8 years. Um, so it's all of these catalysts at the same time playing out in real time. Is It's going to be interesting, short term and long term, in my opinion. As far as CBDCs go, as long as it's not on ETH, I think that I'd be willing to at least hear what they have to say about it, though.
Shade Protocol. What about yourself, brother?
Well, I I think that something that we've seen recently over the past few years, at least in crypto, is that markets are able to react incredibly quickly and oftentimes front run stability mechanisms that are time based. And I'm personally really interested to see kind of how the banking industry in general reacts to the increased efficiency of markets and the speed of information transmission. Um, you know, there are some things, I don't follow stocks personally that much. Generally, I stay pretty focused on crypto. Um, but, I think this also kind of highlights, the value, at least for individuals with larger amounts of wealth, or funds being stored in some of these entities, the value of self custodialship. um, the ability to safely be able to manage your money, have access to those funds at any point in time. Um, Obviously, when you're trading stocks and you're using some sort of exchange or service, if they decide to halt trading, or if the exchange itself decides to halt trading, individuals who are holding those positions can't really do anything, and you're kind of just stuck waiting. And oftentimes, I imagine that causes a bit of a cascade with some of the price action that we'd see, during those times. And so, just kind of looking at what's happening with uh, some of these bank failures, it just makes me realize the value of the self custodialship that we have in Web3, and you know, particularly with privacy. Um, I think it's incredibly valuable for individuals to be able to have that financial privacy of being able to not only be that self custodian for those assets, but also be the only person be able to have that data unless they choose to share it, because in itself that provides some extra security. So
Some
Yeah, I
interesting
think you're.
discussion, guys. Some very interesting discussion. Go ahead, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a really good point. Like privacy. And I think I would run for the hills, Mr. Mohawk, if CBDC got released here in the U.S. I think that this is probably one of the most dangerous things that we could let somebody have is God mode like instantaneous access over exactly what it is we do and don't do on a regular basis. We've seen um, like cash erode over a very long period, and now we see things like, US code 6050I, which if you guys don't know, these are like cash reporting standards. So there's this thing in finance called a Form 8300. It used to just be for the IRS. Now it's FinCEN as well. So you have like a lot of like Bank Secrecy Act type issues there too. They're starting to push this towards like, digital currencies and things like that. If you're interested in learning more a little bit about like, the regulatory world, I'd recommend, listening to the folks over at Coin Center. But to your point, overseer of the Shade Protocol Twitter, privacy is important for a myriad of reasons, right? And I think the primary reason why it's really important is the realization of resilient self-sovereignty over your data. And this is really, really important when it comes to financial data. Um, you know, I can imagine that if we had like a wholly transparent ledger of exactly what people were doing during the American Revolution, we'd probably still have the Queen on our money. And I think we would have been thwarted pretty quickly before our revolution ever happened. And so privacy, tends to go down like these like weird rabbit holes of like, um, nation state actors versus like the individual, but they're certainly really important. And I say that the state of the union around privacy is really toxic. We had a lot of arguments about this in the early mid 90s, in between the original crypto wars, if you will, right? Where people said, hey, we shouldn't have like strong encryption in the hands of individuals, right? And everyone argued that they were going to take and get the bad guys, which is just the guys to justify allowing those in power to have the purview to see exactly what everyone's doing at any given time and control what they're doing, right? And some people say that like oh well, I have nothing to hide, and I'm not worried about the government, and this is this is a really interesting thing, right? Because, I think that, this is like the equivalent of like, oh, like I don't have a single thought that could ever be misinterpreted or, could be used to put me in a difficult situation in the future, and even deeper, some people believe that like, their thoughts and ideals confirm and, conform with the correct regime of thinking, right? Which is, rather vapid on a global scale when you sit and think about it, because there is no such thing as like a global correct mindset. And in fact, a lot of the things that we take for granted in the United States, like, the ability to take and be a homosexual, or women, having free and equal rights, the same as men, would be things that could put you in jail or even worse, get you killed, right? And so I think we seem to forget, very quickly, at least in our very privileged United States purview, that, seemingly every societal value that we take for granted, as obviously true, isn't always true. And it could be in the future an eccentric threat to the powers that be, right? And so, um, how do we deal with that? Well, we deal with it with things like strong encryption, right? And so like the surveillance that, ensures nothing's happening, that they, air quotes, don't approve of as long as their team is in control, we can take and, sort of thwart that, right? And I'm really excited. And, I think like my tinfoil rant here sounds like I'm very negative, but I'm actually really bullish, right? I think, the tech that exists out there for people to build privacy protocols has never been stronger, right? It's never been easier for people to take and get their privacy. There's a lot of interesting stuff, like Zcash here talked about the folks over at, Zcash and ECC and things like this paving the way with really strong zero knowledge standards. There's things like what Secret Network is using when it comes to trusted execution environments and this sort of thing, and SGX, which is really cool in its own right. And so there's a lot of really great things that are coming down the pipe, and we're seeing it grow at a really exponential rate, especially in zero knowledge, where you can take and the barrier for entry to build these things is lowering, day after day in a very rapid way. And so I think the tech is there, and I think that we have a lot of people fighting the good fight. The people who've come on to talk today. Everyone's here, fighting for, sovereign right to reveal themselves and the ability to have privacy. And then we have, large actors in the space like, Bankless and David Hoffman. They took and, did some great legal actions against Janet Yellen. And they weren't the only ones, right? Bankless wasn't the only ones. We had CoinCenter and Coinbase, at all, who were taking and, arguing and chasing these rulings against privacy. Because I think it's really important. Currently there's a really big negative connotation when it comes to privacy. People see it as a bad thing. And I would argue that people taking, using tools to pursue their right to privacy isn't a negative. I think it's a net positive. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I would totally agree that right now with the tech that we have, we have never been in a better place to empower privacy as a human right, and kind of now with the digital age that we're in, kind of seeing that human right morphing into just this digital self-sovereignty. The right to digital privacy, independence, digital transparency, and also access to global financial systems. So especially within DeFi and with networks and protocols that are particularly looking at building out the systems for private DeFi, we've never been in a better place to be able to support these rights for people around the world. So I'm incredibly bullish as well on my end.
Premise, would love to know your thoughts on things regarding CBDCs and all of those things, and some of the things that Alan had touched on, man. I think he's out. I think Premise is
Oh,
out.
okay.
No, I couldn't get off. I couldn't
Like,
get
do
off
you
of.
do you guys anybody that can answer this? You guys truly think they have the tech for CBDCs?
I mean,
I mean,
for myself, dude. Like, I mean, dude, Venmo, Cash App, isn't that like basically something like a CBDC, right?
yeah, I'm actually going to Chat GPT right now to have it, write me some
Yeah,
code for CBDC.
and I think like speaking of Chat GPT, dude, I there's this one guy who's like always on Spaces on Mario Nawfal. I think it's EYNC, something like that. And he had a video where he's actually talking to Chat GPT, and it's like an AI generated woman, and it's like giving reactions, like facial reactions, and carrying it on like a regular conversation. But outside of that, dude, like the framework for a CBDC, I mean, isn't Fed now coming out in 2 months? You know what I'm saying? And what if they have something
Mm,
where it's like a quote unquote incentivized quote unquote test net, if you know what I'm saying?
I mean, I'd like to get exposure to that airdrop. You know what I'm saying?
I sadly can't hear Wabi again. Spaces hates me today.
You're gonna open up your
Ooh, boy, Spaces is truly rugged, man. Spaces is truly rugged.
I would say one of the things that comes to my mind whenever I think about the adoption or kind of instantiation of CBDCs, at least in the U.S., is the type of pressure that's going to put on stable coins that are currently pegged to single sovereign currencies. Obviously, if we're talking about US, we're really looking and scrutinizing USD pegged stable coins, but any sovereign nation that decides to issue a central banking digital currency is most likely going to start scrutinizing, or at least this is my assumption, will begin heavily scrutinizing derivatives of those currencies. And so that's something I'm personally interested to see how the developments come about. Not really interested in CBDC adoption at all, but if it has to come, it's better to be prepared than being caught, with your pants down, so to speak.
I think Premise is connecting. Premise, say something, bro.
Mic check, mic check.
Perfect. I think we're reaching into the last like 5 minutes or so from the show. If you guys are enjoying this conversation, again, if you guys are enjoying the conversation and you're in the crowd and you're new here, feel free to follow me. Not follow me, but follow Because Bitcoin, that giant yellow square smash. I'm gonna be a YouTuber
You
here,
guys can
man.
follow Wabi
Smash.
too.
No,
Yeah, you
don't
should
follow.
totally follow that guy.
Don't follow me, dude. Do not follow me. Follow Because Bitcoin. Follow the giant yellow square. It's like the magic school bus. Feel free to follow it to keep up with all of our shows and all that stuff. We host these shows throughout the week with protocols, with community thought leaders, and all things of the like. Feel free to follow us to keep up with all of our shows. And yeah, we'll go on. We'll go on over to Premise now in the conversation. And again, the topic of conversation in this particular Twitter space is all things privacy, the importance of privacy, and also the disruption of the old guard. And what could be birthed when the old guard falls. And the old guard, I'm saying, the traditional financing system, which I'm sure by the end of the decade will change as we know it. I believe Ray Dalio on one of his books that came out in late 2021, pretty much at the top of the bull market. He said that the rise and fall of the empire usually lasts about 100 years. And I understand some people consider America, um, the inception of America as we know it, in two categories: after World War II, and the creation of the Federal Reserve in 1913. So you kind of have two two different time periods of when people what people think of the modern financial system, right? But anyways, we'll go on over to you, Premise.
Yeah, I do got a question. Okay, so is there any privacy protocols or let's say DApp specific or wallet specific, anything that allows someone to transact their privacy tokens more broad into the real world? Like right now, a huge problem most people would have is sure the token can have a privacy protocol, but if you have to go through an exchange to cash out, well, guess what? Now you're still back on their radar, right? So when it comes to spending, it's either it sounds like you either need a third party that's willing to take your tokens for a payment on the other side. Is there anything that can have a transaction that automatically converts privacy tokens into a purchase, or is that something that could be dealt with down the road, or what I'm getting at? Do we have that kind of protocol out there?
They have an app that
Oh,
does that. You can
you're
actually
you're you're
spend.
bu- you're bugging out, man. You're bugging out. No, it's pretty bad, brother. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Like, I guess I'm asking, do you just order Visa cards somewhere, right? Like,
So I would argue that there definitely are protocols out there.
What about?
Sorry, can you guys hear me? Or am I-
It's bad, brother. It's
Yeah.
pretty bad, brother. Yeah, it was pretty bad, brother.
Can you guys
But
hear me?
yeah, Shade, you're good, brother. You're good, Shade. But ZK, you might have to drop off, man. You might have to drop off and reset your app, uh, restart your phone even, and then come back into the space. But yeah, once again, man, if you guys can do me a favor and follow us here, because Bitcoin is the profile to my left, the giant yellow square. Every single follow counts, man. We're trying to get to 10K by Bitcoin Miami, so would mean the world to us, brother. And I want to thank everyone here on the panel for participating in this conversation. And if anyone in the crowd wants to come up and talk some shop, feel free to do so. We're getting into the heat of the conversation, talking about all things privacy, digital assets, and markets of the like. Feel free to click that request button, and I'll bring you on right up, man. And please follow Because Bitcoin, and it's going to be the profile hosting the space, that giant yellow square. So I'll bring up Will's Outlook.
Yeah, while he's coming up, I do want to add that I would argue that there are protocols and services out there that allow individuals to transact with their private assets or use those private assets to actually purchase. Um, for anyone who is familiar with the Secret Network or isn't familiar with the Secret Network, I recommend you get reacquainted with some of the new applications that are coming out. There's some really interesting mobile wallets, particularly Fina Cash, that allows individuals to actually spend their SNP 20s, which are the private token standard for Secret Network. For anyone that's not familiar, Secret Network is a private by default smart contract platform. Secret smart contracts are what enable this SNP 20 creation. And so for Shade Protocol, our native governance token Shade is a SNP 25. So uh, it assumes these private by default properties, and Silk, which is the world's first private by default stablecoin, is also a SNP 25. And so these assets are transactable, they're fully interoperable within the Cosmos IBC. And one of the largest goals for Shade Protocol is to enable this global access and usage and utility of Silk. And so I'm incredibly excited to see kind of where this goes in the future. But just to give a little bit of color to that question.
Yeah,
Brought
there's, if
somebody
you
up.
guys can hear
Go
me
ahead,
now,
ZK.
there's Flexa
Yeah, you're
too.
good, ZK. You're good. You're good. Go ahead.
Flexa Spedden app. You can use multiple different cryptocurrencies to purchase stuff at all sorts of places, pretty much anywhere relevant that you're going to go.
Have you heard of what is it, Coinsbee? I think they don't have KYC currently. And then I think BitRefill doesn't do KYC on sub $25 cards as well, which I think is really interesting. So there's definitely people out there that allow you to take and do like off ramp type stuff. And I'll also say that there's also a lot of really interesting places out there in the world that will start to take crypto. I was out in New Hampshire not too long ago, and hanging out with some folks who live their life wholly in crypto, which I think is really fascinating, man. I bought beer with crypto, which is really cool. Bought coffee again with crypto. I even bought a breakfast with crypto, which was really cool. And I think it was the first time that I like used crypto as like a payment type thing with like real world assets, if you will. Like in person, took sent somebody tokens for a coffee, which was really really interesting. So it's certainly out there. There's a lot of people getting into that space. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of the folks over at BitRefill and Coinsbee. But that's just me.
Go ahead, Will's Outlook. What's up, Will? Go ahead, man. Will's Outlook.
Yeah, I'm here.
Am I coming?
My bad. I was
Go ahead, man.
trying to get out of the wind before I started talking. Yeah, there's actually a lot of protocols you can use. There's ATMs, right? So you can on ramp and off ramp without ever transacting in the system. As crazy as that sounds, there's a lot of Bitcoin ATMs in what's it called, in Vegas, in California. It just depends on whether or not you guys live in a big city. That's really what it depends on. If you don't, they could be pretty far away. But most of those ATMs don't even require KYC. You can just go in, you can buy your Bitcoin or buy whatever you want with cash. And you can also cash out at those ATMs too.
They're pretty
So it's
liquid,
kind
you
of
think?
like a way to flow into crypto and flow out of crypto without being kind of on the radar of anything.
They're,
I
they're pretty
don't
liquid, you
ask me how
think,
I
though?
know this stuff, but like it's really handy for if you're trying to stay under the radar. So there's and those same machines, I believe they take Monero too, and Monero is pretty much that's you're not able to trace it, and that's why most exchanges don't hold Monero, because Monero is like a through and through privacy coin when it comes to that type of space.
I'm pretty sure you got to be really careful about these ATMs, right? If you're concerned about privacy, right? That is right. Especially in the United States, these guys are running these ATMs that are considered to be what are known as money transmitters, which means that they have to take and register with FinCEN, which means they have to meet all necessary requirements for having like an AML compliance program, which effectively means that they're going to take and track you.
There's a couple that don't require KYC. So if you can't KYC, what are they going to track? That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. If you're cash transactioning, it's just basically like a wallet. You could get a wallet address and you can basically. I think there's only one or two that actually do that. All the rest of them do KYC. So I forget what it's called. It's called like Coin something. The one I've used before, and it basically you can utilize it without any type of identification.
Go ahead, Wesley.
Hey, how's it going? You guys hear me?
You're good, brother.
Hey, so thanks for holding this space, guys. The question I had was for those that are kind of on the panel that are kind of have their own kind of private blockchains, like separate private blockchains. So with the problems with like bridge hacks and security threats involving the use of bridges, like what we saw in last bull run, especially with Wormhole, where they had a huge hack. What is your guys' kind of incentive, kind of benefits, or what are you guys using to like incentivize people to use bridges to kind of come to your guys' kind of private ecosystems versus kind of what Railgun is doing, where they're kind of having privacy on public chains?
Sure, man. I don't know if I joined the wrong chat. Was this the Pepe chat?
Yeah, it's both, brother. Welcome.
Yeah, then I heard railgun. I'm like, holy smokes. I think this is out of my. I go, holy fuck, I
Man,
don't even
dude.
know HTML.
What a beauty. I love it.
He's like, I came in here to hear number go up.
Exactly. Yeah, it's Friday night. I'm like, come on, man. This is no. I want to respect this guy's time.
It's Cinco de Mayo,
This guy
man.
Wesley. No, Wesley had a good question, man. He was talking about rails and fucking hyperventilation. No, I'm just breaking balls. No, but seriously, man, that's cool. No, I just suck at math. That's why I never got into computers and robotics.
Well, you've come to the right space, brother.
Yeah, no,
You've
more
come.
importantly, no, I'll shut the fuck up. I just wanted to make a couple jokes and I'll sit back.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate your honesty. We'll pass the mic over to you, man.
No, take it.
And
Hey, thanks, man. Nah, just having some good times, man. Happy Friday, everybody.
thank you, man. Hey,
Happy
hey,
Friday,
man.
man.
Can you say forget about it?
Forget about it. Forget about it. Fuck it. It's over. It's over. Get the fuck out of here. It's over. It's done.
Man, I love these Twitter spaces sometimes, brother. But yeah, I think who was the question for, Wesley? Was it for the panel or was it for
Yeah, I guess for
Shade or
the
Alan?
projects here that are kind of their own layer one private blockchains, like how are you guys incentivizing people to leave kind of these DeFi, kind of epicenters like Ethereum or these other ones to kind of come to your chains and kind of use bridges in kind of light of kind of some of the security threats that bridges kind of involve?
Well,
Yeah, that would be for Shade.
yeah, I think, when you think about what it takes to get an individual to switch the system or protocols that they're using, whether it be DeFi, NFT ecosystems, whatever, you have to, or it is of our opinion that you have to be able to bring more value than just the privacy. Like, privacy is obviously incredibly important, but whatever protocols that individuals are looking to have their bridged assets utilized in, there needs to be additional value that is brought to these users outside of privacy. Um, the adoption of privacy solely is probably going to be a lot slower than like pure privacy protocols is probably going to be a lot slower without the use of DeFi, because individuals, it's a little bit easier to recognize the value of privacy when it comes to your financial privacy. So, you know, with being built, at least for Shade Protocol, being built on top of Secret Network, we're able to, all of our assets are IBC compatible, so they're able to be used within the Cosmos ecosystem. Obviously, that's not to say that IBC is unbreakable. We've seen, some vulnerabilities in the past that were patched, but when we're considering, how do we get individuals who have stable coins on Ethereum to come over to the Cosmos or to Secret Network to be used? Our biggest proposition is to make that user experience as seamless as possible. Make that onboarding process as, hold on, sorry. Make that onboarding process as seamless as possible. And there's a lot of protocols and projects that we pulled inspiration from. Everything from gas-free bridging, that first interaction to be able to individuals who don't have Secret to be able for them to bridge their assets into Secret Network, to be able to use those assets on our applications for the first time without needing gas. But also, we need to be able to provide a larger value proposition through the actual DeFi applications. I don't necessarily think it's enough to be twice as good as your competitors or the individuals who are building comparable products. You have to go beyond that to be able to really convince someone to bridge those assets over. So the first part is convincing someone, to move those assets and to try using a different piece of technology. But the other part is trying to just continually improve the bridges that we are kind of forced to use. I think the kind of the default canonical bridge for the Cosmos to EVM chains is Axelar, which is effectively a bridge that is a blockchain. And so, improving on previous security models and consensus. And yeah, I'm not going to say it's the easiest thing in the world to convince individuals to make that jump. And it's important for any individual looking to bridge their assets from those assets native chain to understand the risks that are associated with the bridging.
Will's Outlook, go ahead, man. Will's Outlook.
Yeah, I think the bridging questions are great. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. All right. You guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
Yep.
You're good,
I,
man. You're good.
I think the bridging conversation is a great conversation. I haven't actually asked anybody this, but I've noticed it. So it seems like when you look at 2021 and going out of 2021, right? I would say almost all the hacks were bridge related, almost all of them. And it seems like either one side of the bridge or the other, the hacker finds the exploit to be able to grab those assets before they can get through the bridge. And I hear this discussion a lot about, that there's safety in bridges. I just question, like, what is, I guess, what are they really latching onto there to exploit the bridge itself, or if that's even understood, right?
Well, it's just multi-sig OPSEC, right? Most of the bridges that were taken advantage of were controlled by multi-sigs. And so they got to the actors that control the multi-sigs.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so isn't that like an inherent security risk with bridging?
Yeah, for that particular type, right? I mean, there's things like I think I was on another Twitter space. I forget the guy's name. I think it was Frederick, perhaps, but he's one of the founders of this thing called Wade Network, and they're doing a trustless, zero knowledge based type bridging mechanism, and so you can actually have like, really high scalability, really great throughput, a lot faster, and I think it'd be really interesting to see that like, these sort of like substrate type, layer zeros out there, like Way and well, actually like layer zero, actually they kind of stole the nomenclature and put it on a name, but there's definitely some things out there that are getting worked, but current paradigms that exist that people are using, the vast majority of them are multi-sig based.
Yeah, that was kind of, yeah, that's where I was trying to go with the conversation. It seems like that's the direction that a lot of bridges go, and that's usually the exploit of the bridge itself. So like, and I just want to kind of, I don't know if people really know a solution to it. I really don't, because I don't see anybody trying to fix that part of the bridging process, and I don't know if it can be fixed, to be honest with you. And that's why I kind of brought that up. It's kind of like I would say a statement, but also kind of a question. If anybody's ever thought about a solution to that.
As crazy as the losses from bridge hacks is, the losses from social engineering attacks is significantly higher, which is a whole other problem that the entire industry has to kind of deal with. Not just individuals looking to bridge their assets, individuals on their native chains, and in almost every form or fashion. So just general education about the technology that we're using, whether it be hardware wallets, to how to secure some of your login credentials, how to vet different protocols. All of that also plays an incredible part, and that kind of ties into the understanding the risks associated with some of these bridges.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is not at all to throw shade at bridging specifically, but it's more that when you look at a new investor or somebody coming new into the space, it really deters them from wanting to expand and really kind of get into the space, and they tend to want to stick to safety, and kind of how the other person was alluding. You know, how do you bring somebody over from Ethereum? Well, if you have a new user on Ethereum, typically they'll just stay on Ethereum. They won't actually move over. They'll end up staying there because they don't feel safe bridging, because they hear bridging's bad. So the reason that I kind of brought that up, because if we could ever come up with a solution or talk about a solution, or even discuss, hey, this is a way to make it safer, I think that would bring a better light to bridging specifically. But I just haven't had that conversation with anybody, or even heard that conversation with anybody.
I mean, I
Yeah,
think.
so this.
Oh, sorry, Alan.
No, go ahead, man.
I was going to say it's not really a solution to bridging, but we've seen Circle take an interesting stance on how they're approaching providing USDC liquidity on different chains. Being able to issue USDC natively on different chains. Like they announced that they're going to be, launching USDC natively on Cosmos, I believe, late last year, and so. While that's not a solution that decentralized entities can necessarily take, that is something that we're seeing some of these more centralized entities start to use.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. In terms of like bridging solutions, you really kind of hit the nail on the head, right? A lot of this was like social engineering and just OPSEC issues, and so this kind of extends itself out to like other issues like phishing and things like this, right? Where people got wrecked just by like getting fished online. And a lot of these like bridge hacks ultimately kind of like distill themselves down to like the same kind of issue, like humans making bad OPSEC choices and this sort of thing, right? And so the people out there that are trying to solve for this kind of thing, I'm really interested in, again, the Way network. They're working on this thing called ZK Bridge, right? And one of the big issues with bridging is that you have like this really big additional trust assumption, right? That the committee is going to take and do the right thing and not lose your money. And so like this leads to like a really small single point of failure. And so you know these very new, albeit definitely not tested, these new like ZK based bridging mechanisms can enable more efficient cross-chain bridging, without having like this sort of trusted centralized committee, where you could get wrecked because they have like that OPSEC or something like that, right? But I think what's really important for everybody here listening today to kind of like appreciate is that, the crypto space is really early days, man. Like we're super early. I don't know how old everybody is like listening in or like talking today, but we're like pre-MySpace still, right? We're not even zucked yet. We haven't even zucked. So like, we're definitely still super early days. And if we reflect on like the early advent of the internet, it was definitely not a really great place to be. And I mean, fuck, we didn't even have like SSL encryption early days. So like, we kind of got to take all of it with a grain of salt and say that like, it's really unfortunate because we're dealing with like financial technology here, and so the consequences are really great, because some people are playing with, their hard-earned money and their life savings and things like this. And so it's definitely a really hard school of hard knocks, but we kind of got to appreciate that a lot of what we're working on today is ultimately like the substrate. It's the infrastructure. It's the plumbing of a new financial paradigm. So things like Railgun, there's definitely applications being built on top of it. There is, the ability to take and swap privately on, public ledger chains. There's a wallet that has like an incognito mode where you can take and send tokens anonymously to all sorts of other different people. It's called Railway. In fact, contributors, a bit of alpha for those that are listening, right? Contributors are working on some really cool stuff around private vaults. We got some really cool stuff worked up in the testnet area that we're pretty excited to release soon. So there's lots of really interesting things that are happening in like iterations of like usable products out there in the ecosystem. But I think we have to appreciate that a lot of this tech isn't really mature.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Francis was
Go,
up here.
Whoppy.
I was saying Francis was up here about a minute ago. Then he dropped off. Oh man. Go ahead, Will. I think we're gonna start wrapping up, man. We're going beyond our working hours here. So, Will's outlook. Go ahead and give your statement, and then we're gonna wrap up. I think this is the latest we've done a space since, I would say, since January, late January. But it's been an amazing time, guys. Feel free to follow us once again and follow all the speakers on the panel. Follow my lovely co-host for today's Secret Network. Follow all of our speakers: Will, Premise, ZK Shade, Mr. Mohawk, Railgun, Alan, and Pat. Pat, are you there? Pat, you there, brother?
He's busy. He's eating a
No,
sandwich.
I want him to be our hype man. I want him to be our closing hype man, dude.
Oh,
Pat,
man. He's
Pat,
trying
you
to
there,
figure out how to get
brother?
himself off mute.
Pat, you got to get yourself off mute, man. You got to give us a closing statement, dude. You got to be hype, brother. You there? Yeah. I think he's done. I think he's done. But
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to catch a flight.
I,
Basically,
I
in
would
yeah.
like 15 minutes.
I did just want to bring it to this. I completely agree with what Alan said. I'll be fast. I think it's very, very, very early. I just think we have so many things to fix, right? And to make better. And there's a lot of expansion in crypto and a lot of areas that people just aren't exploring because they're scared of the risk. And there's risk in everything at the end of the day. You have to expand yourself beyond your comfortability if you really want to make good liquidity, right? And the early adopters, a lot of early adopters, they went in eyes blind, and they took the positions, and they got in and they made it, right. And I think that if people stick around and they stay in crypto and they continue to build with crypto and understand it better, that you'll see the same gains that everybody else has. A lot of the time, it feels like you're paying crypto. Think of it like you're investing in your college fund, right? Sometimes you lose money, sometimes you win money. It's just how this things play. Yeah, but that's pretty much it.
Man, this is the most expensive degree ever.
I don't know. You should go to a community college nowadays.
Well, guys, it's been fun. It's been fun, guys. This has been a great conversation. Pat, not sure if you can hear us, brother, but if you want to give us a closing statement, feel free to do so. But shout out to our sponsor for today, Nos Protocol. They're up on the nest if you guys want to catch up with them with what they're doing.
Does Secret
And
use
yeah, thank you all.
did you guys implement Halo 2?
I don't think anyone's talking through Secret, brother. They're just here as a co-host for today.
Yeah, so they use SGXT, so it's not Halo.
Oh, okay.
Well,
What
guys,
about
thank you
Railgun?
so much for tuning
What
in.
does Railgun use?
Is ZK able to hear me?
Yeah, so Railgun uses Poseidon hashing of a Merkle tree over Groth 16, and you sign by way of Baby Jub Jub over EDDSA. But we're working on some really interesting stuff around KZG commitments and recursive snarks, but you'll have to catch us on like Telegram for all that deep alpha.